Hello, everyone. My name is Lance. I am with See No Boundaries Creative Group.
And I'm Caleb with See No Boundaries Creative Group.
All right, today we're going to outline a idea called the abstraction prism. To outline this idea, I'm going to outline a couple of issues that we've noticed that I think the community of people working with AI, both on conceptual projects or projects specifically related to AI, have probably noticed as well. I'm 100% sure we're not the only ones. So, you ever spend 20 minutes arguing with ChatGPT just to get to look at a file you know is there, or try to build a simple app on a no-code website and hit a brick wall with about the 80% mark? Do you feel like you've been developing a program on a no-code website, and that program just absolutely gorgeous looking? So you had a very comprehensive UI that would make your program most enviable over everyone else, regardless of whether it worked or not?
Yeah. Actually building a crypto bot. I started with Gaslighting, and everything was going good. The first time, the first iteration only took about maybe 4 or 5 prompts, document about the strategy I was using to trade crypto, and it made nice UI. Everything was working fine. Then I decided to add leverage to my chat on our crypto guy. And once I did that, things kind of changed. And one of the things I noticed about it, this was before the leverage effect. This was the whole time that I had built the bot. It worked, but it didn't work when I wasn't online. When I closed my browser, the bot stopped working. When I opened my browser and relaunched it, okay. So I went through the process of trying to fix that. And during that process, it just kept repeating the same problems over and over again, and never would actually launch the bot the way it would work while I wasn't online.
Yeah, I think I remember watching you work on that, and it was like the agent would start talking as if it was talking to a whole team of agents. So, okay, let me get my architect on this. Let me get this guy on this. Let me get this guy on this. Okay, I think I see what the problem is. Let me fix it real quick. All right, okay, I think I fixed the problem. Okay, well, what did you fix? You didn't do any file calls. You didn't do anything. You just said, let me see if I can find the problem. I think I found the problem. Let me try to fix it. Okay, I fixed it. That's just a conversation. You didn't do anything. So I see what you're relating there. Now, have you also noticed that if you talk too much to a no-code website, does it seem like it's resetting?
I noticed that if you give it a lot of information, it doesn't process it all, or like eventually, like I would say I was working with Caffeine on a program. Caffeine's a no-code platform. There's a combination of 2 companies on ICP, which is a crypto company, and another company is an AI company. And they built a no-code website. While I'm using that site on building these apps, one of the apps I had built, I went back to reference the top of the thread to see what like the first things I said to it, because I wanted to copy that and basically remind it of what we're doing. And it wasn't there. It was nowhere in the chat. Like I went to the top, I'm like, I can't even go past, like I say it was maybe like the fifth or sixth thing that I had said to it.
I see. Now, recently, I ran into an issue with ChatGPT. Now, don't get me wrong. I use a variety of browser-based AIs. I use ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, and Gemini on a daily basis. And a variety of different functions, either just talking about different concepts or actually working on projects. And I've noticed that ChatGPT tends to be quite good at architectural problems, systems designs, frameworks, concepts. Pretty interesting what I tend to get out of ChatGPT. However, I connected ChatGPT to my Google Drive because I'm at the point where quite a few people eventually get to when they do a lot of work like this. You have so many files that you can't easily upload a lot of files to an ongoing thread. Now, there's a couple of ongoing issues that go on here. One, you only have so much of a context window. If you don't know what the context window is, it would do you a lot of good to look up that term. And I'm not saying that to be an asshole, and I'm not saying it because I don't want to describe it here. I'm saying that a core underlying motivation of us making this video is in the lack of information that's being put out about AIs currently. So basically, you have only so much space in the context window. And so when you upload a bunch of documents, it consumes space and it also generates a lot of tokens very quickly. The other issue is when you have an AI where you can only upload, say, 10, maybe 15 files at a time, and you have like 150 files that you have to cross-reference, that's not viable. If you want to do the math, that's 15 turns in a conversation that you have to spend every single turn uploading 10 files at a time. And if they're located in different file structures, obviously this creates a core constraint on the workflow there. Well, for that reason, I, like many others, probably fiddled around in the settings or, watched YouTube videos or read some Reddit forums because we had questions and realized you could connect ChatGPT to Google Drive. However, mid-project, mid-conversation, which is the conversation on screen now, I came to realize that I did not have access to Google Drive. Why is this? Is it enabled in the settings? Yes. But as per another tool that I have developed already, and I have it uploaded to this chat, which is the only reason I was able to notice this issue as quickly as it did. But it took me a while to figure out why it was an issue. You might see that chat tells me that even though I requested it look at the drive for requisite folders, it tells me it has 0 visibility on the Google Drive. And then it proceeds to tell me in this chat, he can only search what I've uploaded. Now, I'm working on a very specific AI-based tool. I do a lot of AI-based tools. And for this particular tool, I have over 20 files to cross-reference. Having access to Google Drive is imperative for the type of projects I work on. However, despite my efforts to create systems by which I can access large amounts of files, I find that somehow or another, access to Google Drive was turned off in this conversation because it was available at the beginning of the conversation. And I know this because ChatGPT already pulled files from the Google Drive. But now there is no active Google Drive connector exposed to this thread. Why is this? Well, as I waste several turns in the middle of a project, thus potentially contaminating the project, because I have to, do all this conversating, trying to figure out how to get this to connect. First, I'm trying to figure out what is the level of this issue, and then I'm trying to demand that ChatGPT connect to the drive, because I'm realizing that this might, it turns out that it's not, but it might be prompt engineering. I might have to give clearer prompts. But that's not the issue either.
Real quick before you go into the issue, at the point where you're saying prompt engineering is what you thought was the issue. Before that, can you quickly explain what you mean by contaminating the thread? Because people might not have some of the that you did. Because I didn't realize you meant by that until you explained it.
Okay, so let's I guess this video is going to be as long as it needs to be. So context window is the first thing I'm going to discuss. The entire conversation you see in front of you is a context window. What happens when you type a prompt in, which is when you enter something in the field down at the bottom of the screen, you're typing in a prompt, okay? When you type in a prompt and hit enter, that prompt in this conversation goes back to the server to query for information. So contrary to what some people might believe, your conversation doesn't actually happen in this window. It's just displayed here. Okay, so it goes all the way back to the server, and then the server and the sophisticated architecture of the large language model produces a response, and then it's delivered back to you. Now, I have a reason to believe that this is not done in a very efficient manner. It's not because nobody wants to produce it in a very efficient manner. It's just the nature of the architecture. Now, the fact that it produces a response despite the high level complexity of the conversation in seconds is pretty cool. But that is context window. All right. Now, prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is the concept that when you type something in, you need to type it a certain way in order to get certain types of responses. Okay. Your goal in working with the agent is you want to get the agent to do certain things. Now, if you're just asking, straight up questions, sometimes a short, clear question will give you the response you want. And if you're working at that level and you're getting the response you feel like you need, cool. But the more complex the conversation, the more you'll want to get into collaborative mode. Okay. And so there's a difference. There's collaboration mode and then there's work mode. Okay. Work mode is, hey, can you generate some Python script? I would like to do this, this, and this. Cool. Pops you out some Python script. That might be all you need. But if you need to say, hey, I want to discuss a new website idea where people can buy, sell, and trade dog pictures. Okay. Maybe that's going to take a few, prompts and responses to very clearly design your website by how you want it to work. And then you're going to discuss the programming later. Well, you have to understand that if you just say, hey, I want to build a website, well, Gemini is going to say, okay, well, what kind of website are you trying to build? All right. And you're just like, well, I want to do a website that trades pictures. Okay, what kind of pictures are you trading? Okay, so the problem here is that Gemini is now in search mode. It's trying to figure out what you're talking about because you didn't give it enough information initially. And see, here's the thing. If you're a free user, you may not care about this. But if you're paying for this, you're paying for token usage. All right. You're paying to send information back and forth. And notice these first couple of responses are not actually building your website. They're not expanding your idea. You're basically wasting your time because the agent is spending and burning tokens and prompts to try and figure out what you're talking about before it can actually help you. Okay. So if you start with a prompt of, I want to build a website where I and other people can buy, sell, and trade, dog pictures. All right. You've given it a great deal of information to start with. You have now already entered collaboration mode, or you very well be in collaboration mode by the second turn. Why is this important? Okay. So just to give you some reference, most of the time, most people are never going to achieve this. That's not saying you can achieve it. I'm just saying most conversations don't get to this point. You have about 60 turns in most threads. On average, it varies, depends on the thread, depends on a lot of circumstances. You have about 60 turns in most threads to achieve whatever you're going to achieve or transfer your information to another thread. Because after 60 turns in a thread, that is prompt and response, is a very clearly documented phenomenon where the thread will start to break down in various ways. Now, it can take longer, it could take shorter. It really depends on what you're doing, but you'll see types of artifact contamination. That's where you see weird symbols in the AI's responses. You will see desynchronization, where the AI is giving you responses that it already gave you before, literally verbatim, as if it was answering a question that you asked several turns before. And then you might even see response errors where it's unable to even answer even simple questions about information you've already discussed. Okay. So the very clear sense is you only have so much time in each thread to accomplish a great amount of work. So prompt engineering is the effort, number one, to get into collaboration mode or a hybrid mode where you have collaboration work mode. So you're both collaborating and producing documents, for example. Okay, that's prompt engineering. And that also means that probably going forward in your conversation, you want to make your prompts as meaningful as possible. All right. So there's basically a crash course in how these AI browsers work. And I will tell you, if you have noticed that the content of your prompts seems to determine the outcome, you're right. And I will tell you why. My business partner, this is very weird. He studied the idea of prompt engineering about a year or so ago.
Well, when AI first really took off, that was the conversation like people were gonna become prompt engineers. So you start looking under what it took to make a good prompt. And that's how, different platforms had different ways. Like Midjourney theirs was almost the most code like because you had to start with certain, like just like when you code and you got to start with like pip and NNP and what I'm saying, all that stuff. With Midjourney, you had certain phrases you had to start your prompt with to get certain reaction. So that's the way things were in the beginning. And then we hit the stage where once we got the no-code, oh, you don't got to do that anymore. You just say a sentence. And I know if you deal with AI, you didn't see the base 44 ad. And then, with one sentence, you can make the app of your dreams or whatever. And yeah, that's where that was at. That's where we're at right now.
Basically, as this conversation develops, we will show you quite handily that the idea that you no longer have to generate proper prompts to get responses is mostly nonsense. So what we're looking at here in how the AI works and what it does and what it actually does, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to get out of it, is that there is an ongoing issue with how some of the platforms are developed. Now, I'm not trying to pitch any conspiracy theories. I don't care about that. I'm here to work. I build AI-based tools. I build AI-based programs. And to be quite honest, the only thing I actually want to do is build video games. But I had to build tools as workarounds for some of the core constraints I dealt with. But I've noticed ongoing that the tools that I built, these are AI first tools, they're actually designed to be used by AIs. They had to be written in such a way. So here's the interesting thing. I never studied prompt engineering. I had no idea it was a thing. I literally stumbled headlong into this um, because I was developing tools for AIs. And I realized instinctively that as I used the tools, if there was something wrong with the tools, there was already an immediate behavior change with the AI between an AI using the tool and the AI not using the tool. So these are across behavioral models. So if I'm using Gemini and I have it use a tool, and then if I have Gemini use a tool that is subpar, there's a behavioral shift. It's very weird. So but I also noticed that in talking to the AIs, depending on how I talk to the AIs, there's a difference. So, like my business partner noted once, um, when I was talking to Gemini one time, I typed in a sentence because I hadn't yet discovered whisper flow, so I couldn't just talk all my prompts in. I typed in a paragraph as my very first prompt for a conversation, and I got 5 paragraphs of response from that. And my business partner was like, "Yeah, I've never seen that before."
Yeah, it was the level of the conversation that he had, and the and I guess because of the way that your conversations are structured, and you structured it in such a good instruction form that it basically produced almost exactly what you asked for, and then really a little beyond it.
And the point of this is to point out I didn't know what I was actually doing because I'd never worked with AI. I've only been working with AIs for about, was it 4 or 5 months since September of 2025. So I hadn't worked extensively with AIs. I actually think what it is that my prompts tend to be so damn big that there has to be enough information in it to do anything most of the time. Now, I didn't say I was good at it. I just said it's kind of consistent. So it's noticeable difference across all AIs. What you'll notice is this collaborative mode can be accessed with most AI. Um, but basically, you have to give it enough information. Now, what also comes into this is uh, I mentioned this at the beginning of the conversation. ChatGPT tends to work very well with um, architectural stuff. So if you're architecting something, designing something, creating a system, creating a framework for something, ChatGPT tends to respond very highly. You see a high signal response a lot with ChatGPT. This is not my opinion. This is pretty much across the board. Um, Most people who have used some of the browser-based AIs in an extensive level um, have noticed this phenomenon. It has a lot to do with the behavior model and what they're trained on. Um, but it's across the board. You'll notice Claude, the browser version of Claude, has the propensity to respond to more philosophical discussions. So you can do philosophy and governance conversations with Claude. You get a high signal response. And so, and then Grok is just really into edge cases and pushing boundaries with ideas. So if you give good prompts, and you're in general working in these types of vectors, you'll notice the types of responses are very different when you work with different ages based on their strengths. That's what I call them, strengths. So ChatGPT is really good at architecture and design. Well, discuss architecture and design with ChatGPT. Give it decent prompts, you'll get a lot of flow out of it. But back to the issue at hand, because we kind of took a nosedive off of a cliff of a rabbit hole over here. The drive access. So the mounted drive tool means this specific conversation instance has been granted an active callable interface to Google Drive at runtime, not just permission at the account level. So that's at runtime. Okay. So delving deeper into this rabbit hole, there are 3 levels of this. One is the account level authorization. One is the capability availability, what the model could use, and conversation level tool mounting, what actually matters. In this thread, the answer is no. Basically, the analogy, I'll let ChatGPT do a good bit of the talking here, is that the account, if the account has something like a USB hard drive plugged into the computer, by each conversation sandbox process, the system decides whether to mount that drive into the process or leave it unmounted. If it's not unmounted, the process can't see it, the model can't list files, the model can't search file names, and pretending it can would be a hallucination. Now, why there's no setting? So here's the key distinction with this issue. When you go to turn on the setting to access Google Drive or say GitHub, because I have GitHub as well, when you turn on the setting to access Google Drive, it doesn't say that this only gives you access level to the Google Drive at the account level. It doesn't say anything about whether or not it's going to selectively allow you to access Google Drive during your conversations. Why? What the fuck could this possibly, what could be the decision behind this type of process? Okay. But here it is. The system designers treated tool access as an implementation detail, not a core collaboration surface. They assumed most users won't care. I'm not most users. And I get the feeling quite a few people, hopefully, who watch this video are also not most users. All right. If you're experiencing these type of frustrations, it's probably because you spend hours, maybe every other day or every day, working with AIs on different things. Okay. So if you're at the level where you're starting to notice these types of issues, you're not alone. There's a growing, I've noticed quite a few of the videos talking about this, where it seems like that some of these websites are intentionally driving traffic towards newer users, the entry level consumer, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, I want more people to get into AI because that means I'll get to see more AI content. That's cool. But it seems like that's coming at the expense of people who use AI a great deal, and especially people who pay for access to AI, that pay to have the higher level tool usage. So the idea behind this is there is not a setting or a command or a directive. There's no way to reactivate the drive mount in the conversation once the conversation is started, and once whatever selected process in the background that's going on is completely silent, completely invisible. Once that process has decided to unhook the drive, There's nothing you can do about it except to transfer your conversation to another thread. Now, thankfully, I have a tool for that. It's a pretty nice tool. I can take this entire conversation, condense it, move it to another thread, along with a handoff file that explains the basic idea of the conversation, so that when I start the new thread, I don't start all over again. Now, guess what that could possibly be? Sounds like prompt engineering, doesn't it? That's because it is. Trust me, I'm beating myself in the face for not realizing that I was doing prompt engineering for 4 months. And so there's no degree of consistency. That's the whole core issue here. There's no degree of consistency with this issue. And it's, when you look at it like that, it's pretty obvious that this constraint is designed around new users. New users are not going to really need to use Google Drive.
Yeah, they're just getting started, so it's not everyone can be doing anything complex. Unless you got somebody like me who, as soon as they saw what AI could do, I saw ChatGPT and I was on a call about how to use AI for music. And as soon as I saw what he was doing, ChatGPT, this about like late 2022 or 23 or whatever. Once I saw what it could do, I immediately went to, oh, it's time to start doing this crypto stuff again, and went on and been on a rampage ever since.
So I will elaborate. There's several issues at play here. One is that there seems to be an ongoing industry standard to drive more content towards newer users. That in itself is not the problem. All right. If you don't have a living ecosystem, the ecosystem will eventually die out because you're lacking new ideas, you're lacking new concepts, you're lacking new users with new perspectives, regardless of where they come from. Now, that being said, why is this only in one direction? Why is this only aimed at newer users? Now, I'll admit, 4 months ago, I was that new user. I didn't know anything. I learned most of what I've learned by simply working with the AIs and observing their behaviors. Now, I've taken deep dives. I've done some research on the side, watched videos as I ran into problems because I needed to learn how to get around those problems. But I was that new user. But why is there seem to be a mentality against pro users? But I'd like to reframe that because I like to have at least two observations on something, two perspectives to consider, because it keeps me from getting tunnel vision. Perhaps what this really is, what we really need to reframe it as, not why is it against prosumers, but why isn't there a model for prosumers? Why is there not a model for the professional user? Why is there not a model that encourages high level usage? Why is there not a model that encourages you to test not really the boundaries of the system, but to test the resources of the system? Because I'm not advocating for less guardrails. That's dumb. Okay. I'm not advocating for no system constraints. That's also stupid. But the idea that grown adults, especially in most cases, need their hands held and that every tool needs to feel like a pair of safety fucking scissors is nonsense. Okay? Look, to some extent, most people will learn very quickly there's certain things you do and certain things you don't do in an environment like this. Like, one, if you're developing a file and you want to create a new version of the file, well, here's a key thing I learned very quickly. You don't rewrite the file. You create a copy of the file and you add updates to that. That way you have version history. That way you have something to compare to. That way, if there's a mistake, especially if you have the AI writing a lot of stuff, if there's a mistake, the mistake is in the new document, not in the original. See what I mean? Seems like a pretty simple thing to learn. These are things that people typically pick up pretty fast. But treating everyone as if they're a fucking idiot is insulting, especially people who work hard for their money and then use that money to pay for these services. Now, of course, these people can't be expected to have 100% uptime. A lot of people are using these tools. There are some things you expect to go with the territory. But if I'm paying for tool access and I'm being arbitrarily denied tool access, that's a problem. So what you're looking for across the board is an energy standard moving toward an industry standard moving towards newer users explicitly and exclusively towards newer users. You're seeing an actual push to ignore prompt engineering, which all that does is make you waste tokens, make you waste time, make you waste energy, and it doesn't make you better at utilizing the assets that you have. It makes you worse. Okay. So not only are you wasting your time, you're wasting your money because you're not getting your money's worth out of it. And that's not because these are necessarily bad tools. Sure, they have their limitations, but it's because you're not able to access what you're paying for. Okay. So top down, they're pushing away from prompt engineering. But here's another interesting thing. Most of the no-code websites context window is so fucking small, you can't even develop good prompts for it anyway. If you type anything more than a sentence or two, it will completely wipe out the context window. And that is another interesting issue once you get out of the browser AIs. Now, the browser AIs tend to have fairly large context windows. Gemini, I think, has the largest. I can't remember if it's 2 million tokens or 5 million tokens, but it's a lot. So you can go a long way with Gemini, usually. And it depends on the conversation, what kind of project you're using. But these no-code websites seem to have somewhere between 1,000 tokens and 1,500. So if you type a couple large paragraphs, it will literally reset the conversation. And the fun thing about this is that I've noticed that a lot of times what is posted in the conversation versus what the AI actually has access to can be two different things. Okay. Because it seems like the conversation itself is not actually in the AI's memory. It seems like the AI only stores a certain type of information or certain tokens to reference. So it doesn't actually store the entire conversation to recall it. Seems like an interesting problem. Wouldn't you agree? But that's one of the reasons why we run into so many issues. Now, I've designed, I think, two tools that might help with this issue. One is Laura Gem. That is a chat box utilizing an API that allows me some API level interaction at a local level. So I have a stabilized file structure, and then I have something this is intended to be like an orchestrator between multiple AI units. Seems like it'll be a pretty good idea going forward. I've already started building it. Works pretty good. Just in product testing now. Another system I've developed, which is kind of actually kept popping up in the chat because it's very, very much part of this very big discussion here, is Laura Workforce. And that's a concept where, say you want to work with different AIs, okay, whether in the browser or in VS Code or what have you, whatever system you're setting up to use multiple AIs in some type of workflow where you delegate different types of tasks to different AIs. Well, how do you set a standard by which they all operate so they all can communicate together and they can all basically be within the same operational standard? Well, that's kind of what Laura Workforce does. If you start working with multiple AIs, you'll notice similar issues. How should these AIs communicate? So there be a communication standard? How should one AI develop files and presumably code in a way that another AI can read? Should there be a standard? These are questions you should be asking yourself going forward. But if you're a pro user, you probably already defined use cases for this, and you probably already defined tools. But the core takeaway I want everybody to take from this conversation: you're not crazy. If you feel like you've noticed these issues, you probably noticed them. They're real. And you hopefully are noticing now that you're not the only one looking at these issues. The issue is real. I wonder though if the market is going to change on its own, which is not very likely, not without some pressure, because it feels like there's a lot of pressure behind this. But I think I realized something that I know my business partner realizes, and I know quite a few have realized this too. You're not alone. And I think the market narrative is misunderstanding the customer base quite a bit. I think that they don't understand just what kind of people are using these tools. I think we're seeing uh, very upset professionals who are very sophisticated, very educated, and very well versed in the usage of these AIs and how these AIs work. And so I think that most of the complaints that I'm seeing um, in my surface level analysis of the way other people are addressing these problems, or at least venting their very real frustrations, is that these people are pointing out very legitimate issues. They have every right to point this out. They are paying for services that they are being selectively denied on. In several videos I've seen, they're talking about high level programmers being actively discouraged from using platforms because their usage is being actively throttled. This doesn't make any sense. From my perspective, this looks like a completely awesome business venture. From my perspective, this looks like another business model waiting to happen. From my perspective, I see potential customers. Okay. So why is it none of these platforms are jumping on a prosumer model? Okay, here's the prosumer, advantage plan over here. You pay this amount of much money plus this much extra if you go over. Who cares? Now you can run as much traffic as you want to within certain guidelines, but as much traffic as you want to. Now you're no longer actively punished. Doesn't this seem like a solution? Rather than, oh, no, you're doing too much. We don't want you to do this much this month. You need to wait till next month to do this. Doesn't this seem like a solution? I've noticed some platforms have something like this, but if we're pushing towards the no-code platforms, they're not there. Not only are they not there, they're literally set up to make it look like they're there. But the people who built these are assuming base level stupidity in their users. And I think this is a core misunderstanding of the people overall that are using these websites. What do you think, Caleb?
Well, from all of the stuff that I've been looking at, as of recent, um, companies agree. The companies are scared. It's a narrative out there that all of these top tech companies are really just in a money shuffle between each other to make it look like things are good and prop the industry up. So, in my perspective, it seems like, yeah, they're going to target a bunch of new users because they need new money. So they're going to try to make it simple and look like, oh, it's easy, anybody can do it. And then kind of curtail you towards simple stuff, because if you ever look at these no-code websites, the first stuff up there, let's make a list of your favorite baking recipes, or let's line up your workout schedule. Just simple stuff. I'm like, I'm not here to do that. I'm trying to build something so I can connect two things together and produce a massive algorithm of, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. And a lot of it is curtailed towards the social media consumer. That's why if you look on social media, the main thing that everybody's doing with AI is making the same video trying to go viral off of trends and stuff. And they're using it for, you know, your social media stuff. So as long as they got the social media crowd to spend money to get the ability to make the gorilla talking with the selfie video over and over again, they're fine as long as they can get more of those people. But anybody who's trying to do anything for real, oh, that's not a massive market enough for them. And to me, it's kind of backwards, because with that's like putting an airplane out here, but you're not looking for pilots, you're looking for passengers. Well, who's gonna fly the plane? You know what I'm saying? The plane has to go up. AI needs to expand and grow, and people's opportunities, all the innovation needs to grow. And then they're so focused on getting all this money that they're behind on and trying to, you know, that's why they're saying it's a bubble. But you know, that's a soapbox I stand on all day.
Yeah, see, what we're seeing here is definitely a bubble. I was getting into, I covered prompt engineering, and basically I've kind of come up with a phrase. I'm not sure if it's exactly what people are using, but basically when you don't take the time, or you just don't know how to build a good prompt, it's lazy prompting. You're burning tokens on guessing instead of working. And how is this the same as no code? They hide the gears to make it look pretty, but when you need to change a gear, complex logic, you can't reach it. The core distinction is that when you do no code, you type in stuff, and then the AI does everything, and it produces it in a window. You don't get to see the inner workings of the website. You don't have any idea how it works. Now, I've noticed that some of my tools work okay on these no-code websites. The core issue is the context window is often too small for it to actually run some of my core, more comprehensive tools, which means that initially what's happening is context window doesn't have enough memory basically to run a tool. They don't have enough memory to really do a lot of things. So you're very much limited to certain types of projects, because the more complex your project is, the more nuanced your workflow has to be in order to keep a project on the rails. And let's face it, what these AI sites are actually aimed at are people who don't have initially a high level of sophistication with programming, a high level of sophistication with project development, a high level sophisticated network of people that can handle that stuff. Let's face it, most people that are getting into AI to build things don't immediately have this stuff. Now, does that mean that everyone who's in AI doesn't have those things? No. There's plenty of networks involved in AI and developing stuff. And maybe they have the right perspective. I don't know. But the issue we're looking at is, even if you are intelligent enough to realize there are problems with the no-code websites, they're deliberately set up in a way so that most of your workarounds just won't work on a no-code website anyway. That's why I stuck with the browser versions, which, like I said, they had their trade-offs. And that's why when I do actual work-based stuff, like on my computer, I use stuff like VS Code with Copilot. he's honestly one of the better ones I've worked with, and paying a monthly fee to use 5 different varieties of API. Yeah, am I going to sit here and argue that's a great deal? No, but I don't care because I pay X amount of dollars a month. I get an actual service I can use, and it uses my tools just fine so that I can get far higher productivity out of it than the average user is going to build. Now, does that make me comprehensive in my knowledge of how Copilot works? Fuck no. Like I said, I'm learning as I go. But I am noticing that there's huge constraints on how people get into this. Copilot is a beast. And he takes some trial and error. But if you can get him to work along the lines of what you need him to do, which is programming, building files, stuff like that, and you can put some gentle guardrails on him, he can take you a lot farther than these no-code websites. And that's just my contention. That's what I'm pointing out. That's been my experience. I've tried some of the no-code websites. They don't work for me. They don't develop things that I actually want to use unless I just want to develop a comprehensive UI. So I tried working with builder.io. The big issue I recognize with builder.io is that you don't even have enough context window to type in what you're trying to do. So if you're just trying to say you want a single page website, probably going to be able to do it. But if you have a program that probably has 5 separate interconnected UIs, good luck. That's all I can tell you. Good luck. Because one paragraph wiped out the context window for builder.io repeatedly. And that was back when I didn't understand what was going on. So, what should you take away from this conversation? They're treating us like children. The market standard is to ignore people like us or people who are much farther along than I am. All right. And why is this a problem? Well, people like me and people like you guys, we are the next generation of AI development. Okay. And when the current model is to stifle innovation, stifle creation, you're also stifling the very personalities and mindsets that might generate the tools that take AI into new vectors. Doesn't that seem a bit dumb?
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like I say, it's almost like when we had the discussion and we were um talking about the industrial age as far as education goes. It's like now we're at the stage where they just want to build basic people who they know will be happy with prompting and getting pictures of cats and things like that, and just be. And as long as everybody's there and everybody pays $20 a month for that, and they can get everybody to do that, and they're good. But as far as like somebody that can grow beyond that, like I say, it's a small window. So that's not in that's not in their financial goals. They want to make the most money. But it's a whole nother thing. Like as long as everybody's simple and follows the straight line, we'll be good. If we get people veering off, we're not going when we focus on those people, and we're not going to meet our quota.
So, this is why I came up with a concept of Laura Gem. It's not, it would make a great product, I think. But honestly, I have to build it because I need a tool that actually listens to me, where the guardrails that are in place actually make sense. I'm not trying to put straitjackets on AIs. That's dumb. AIs have high level capabilities if they're utilized properly. they can yield very high level returns. But when you put straitjackets on not only the AIs and the users, you're creating basically a race to the bottom. And what this is basically on both ends of the spectrum is we're being trained away from innovation. We're being trained away from insights. We're being trained away from perspectives. We're being trained away from novelty. And we're basically told this is AI. This is how you use it. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. We're the developers. We know everything. And you might as well just sit in the corner and appreciate how awesome our tools are. And no, my incomplete Lore Gem works better than most of the no-code websites because it's consistent and because I can actually talk to it. So if you're a dev, stop building toys, build tools for adults. Now, don't get me wrong. These no-code websites, I don't think they're actually the problem. They're a symptom of the problem. I think the core problem with them is they don't advertise honestly. What they really should do is explain, hey, we are pitching towards the person who wants to make cat videos, who wants to do the selfie of the gorilla, or they want the
simple landing page and travel blog or whatever.
yeah. And so, or the Joe Rogan style podcast where you got a gorilla and another ape discussing a fight that never happened. Okay. And you got people debating online whether this happened or this didn't happen. Okay. It's driving content. So it's making people money. And at the end of the day, you have to make money. I don't disagree with that. I disagree with dishonest advertising and a market narrative that the user is not to be trusted with a tool that they're paying to use. This is nonsense. So if you're a developer, build tools for adults. There's plenty of adults out here. And here's another concept. If you're noticing people who are utilizing your platform in not a destabilizing way, but they're a high level user, maybe contact them and see if they're working on stuff that you'd be interested in, see if they want to come work for you. I mean, it seems like a pretty good way to talent search. If you're running an AI website that's designed around, building programs, and you got people building very high level programs, and you can usually tell by their usage history and basically how many tokens they tend to burn through every month. You can usually tell these type of users just by their usage history. Seems like it'd be a good way to talent scout, basically. But I don't think anybody's really pushing for that from the market perspective. So what do I think overall? Do I think maybe there's ripe opportunity for somebody to develop a no bullshit programming and AI development website where like-minded individuals can come together and develop a platform where if you want to develop not music content, but AI related to music, cool. If you want to develop a website where high end programming is the goal, where you design a program that has fucking 20,000, 30,000 lines of code, upwards to 600,000 lines of code, cool. I want to talk to you. If you think that that's what we need to do, maybe there should be a conversation about that. And even if you think, hey, we should also probably push back against the high level tools that are available now that are basically being updated away from innovation. That's a conversation too. At the end of the day, we currently have our tools and we have people developing tools. And my core concern is how quickly is the market going to shift to the we have to hold everybody hands model? You know, that everybody is a child and they have to be nurtured and loved and protected from themselves. How fast is the market going to shift in that direction? I don't want to see that. I don't think any of you want to see that. I think at the end of the day, you're all intelligent people and there's projects you want to work on. There's stuff you want to work on, even if you don't want to make money off of it, even if you just want to have fun with cool things. Cool. I think there's conversations to be had. Um, what do you think, Caleb?
I think, well, I know because I'm the people that I'm speaking about want to get what they paid for. If I put this in here and I want these results out of it, I would like to have a complete thing. I don't want to be lied to that, oh yeah, this is done, it's great, it's beautiful, everything's working right. And then I look at it and it's no, it's not. And then, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, let's fix it. That's still not working. I see that. Let's fix it. And then next thing you know, oh, you out of usage for the month. I don't like being robbed.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if they're telling you you're paying for this tool and access to this service, it's one thing to have service downtime, where most of us are probably familiar with that. Most of us are using the internet. Internet usages get less and less noticeable. Internet outages get less and less noticeable unless there's severe issues, depending on where you live. But most of us are aware of those possibilities. But however, being told that you're paying for a consistent access to certain tools and access to certain services that are selectively simply deactivated while you're still paying for them. Key concern there, you're still paying for the access, you just don't have access. That's a bit concerning because how long is it before they decide, well, you know what? We don't think this user level needs access to any of this stuff. So we're just going to deactivate it altogether, even though you started that plan, presumably paying for that access. Well, they'll just remove access to those things altogether and then try to make you pay for a higher level subscription to have access to those same tools. I mean, there's really no end to the type of nonsense you can get into if there's no pushback. So I don't really know what the pushback needs to look like. All I'm saying is there are definitely issues. We are not alone in noticing them. We definitely notice the issues. I'm getting smarter. I know everybody else is getting smarter. Plenty of people smarter than me working on this stuff. We're not blind. We see what the devs are trying to do. This isn't going to work. This is going to be blowback. And it's not going to be fun. I have a feeling that whatever comes out of this market pressure, because people are noticing that there's a bubble, there's a shuffling around. We didn't even discuss the fact that the AIs are basically getting stronger and better and faster, but there may be coming a point where faster and can do more things may not be enough. I wonder at the on the projected stability of these models, um, because these models are essentially now black boxes. They're one-trick ponies, and something I missed discussing. Anytime you run a thread, you want to try to keep a thread to one subject at a time. If you're going to combine ideas, what you should do is say idea 1 in thread 1, idea 2 in thread 2, idea 3 in thread 3, and in thread 4, you prompt the AI that you're about to combine a couple of ideas. and you ask for the AI's help to combine those ideas, so you're not contaminating the original threads that the individual ideas came from. The reason this is important is because when you change ideas in a thread, it changes the token usage. It expands the token usage in different ways. And that's basically idea contamination. You're contaminating one idea with a different idea. And you might want that original idea untainted so that you can come back to it and consider it. But yeah, so I think we've kind of reached a kind of end. If you guys are tired of the toy era of AI, let us know. Let's start a discussion about it. We're in the trenches figuring this out, and we're going to shred every broken wall we can find. But before I sign off, I want to share something else with you. And probably when we post this video, probably both on my YouTube channel and on the See No Boundaries channel, I'm probably going to post this protocol of intent. So this is what came out of my discussion with Gemini on this topic, and using Gemini to do some of the more heavy lifting to look at the market and the documentation and user feedback on. So like this is mainly around prompt engineering, and this basically helps with the idea that it is quite obvious to anyone who stumbles upon this. They'll immediately understand that prompt engineering develops high-level content. And the absence of the understanding of prompt engineering seems to be very deliberate. There seems to be a deliberate push to eliminate it. And this is a document that I was able to put together. I'm going to use it as a tool in developing my other tools, obviously, because it's a high-value document. But I'm thinking about it. I'm wanting to include it with the posting of this video, so each of you out there has something else to go by. Consider it a free tool from my stable of probably over 100 AI-based tools. I hope it does you some good. I hope it helps you see more of the issues that we're dealing with. Some of these issues we're dealing with, we can plan around, we can develop tools, we can develop workflow solutions, we can develop best overall project practices so that our work is more consistent and delivers more predictable high-level results. But some of them are core constraints that we can't really plan around within the system. We have to develop a new system, or we have to have a new AI, or we have to have a new website, whatever. So the way I see it is we are in the state of trying to figure out the true problem vector so that we can figure out a true solution state. There may be multiple solutions. That's why it's a good idea to have a conversation about it. All right. What do you think about all that, Caleb? Let's close this up.
Yeah, apologize for the extra noise. Because this is not AI.
Anyway, this has been Lance and Caleb with See No Boundaries Creative Group. Working on a lot of projects, work on bots, I work on video games, story ideas. Primarily in the interest of this space, I work with AI-based tools. Some of these are AI-first tools. They're designed to be prompt engineered generative systems to direct AIs in certain ways in order to utilize some of their core specialities, and some of them are just instruction manuals to inform on developing of AI tools. So, like I said, I'm going to include this one, the protocol of intent observation, with the posting of this video. And hopefully this video has given those who are viewing it some meat to latch on to. Do have a nice day and create something cool.